Jesus explains, the kingdom of God measures you the same way how you measure the kingdom of God. Volume 8, Chapter 104. The Parable of the Hungry Traveler. The Lord. There once was a man who, as he traveled during the night, became very hungry. Towards midnight, he entered a village. There was a house that resembled an inn, but everybody within it was already asleep. Yet even then, the traveler knocked on the door of the house, as well as on the windows. He knocked for quite a while, and so the innkeeper awoke, came to the window, and reluctantly asked the late traveler what was happening, why he was so shamelessly knocking on the doors and windows at such a late hour. The traveler said, "Oh, master, I come from far away and had naught to eat or drink throughout the whole day, for not a single house or inn could be found along the path through the desert. Therefore, I beg you to have mercy on me and give me some bread, so that I may still my hunger and strengthen myself. Otherwise, I might famish." Thereupon the innkeeper said, "What is the matter with you to ask bread of me this late at night? Wait until daytime." But the traveler refused to be sent away with this answer, and instead he begged the innkeeper all the more urgently for bread. Finally, the innkeeper relented, and although he did not give the bread to the traveler out of mercy, so to speak, he gave it to him anyway, because of the shameless request so late at night. Behold, from this illustration you can glean the following. A person traveling along the barren path through the desert all his life, having strayed from the straight and narrow, could not find and receive any bread for the life of his soul. This way he entered the deep night of life, and finally, despite continuing to travel this path, in the middle of the night he came upon an inn, and he was at least convinced that inside it there might be some bread of life. He began to knock and ask, and at the very end of his time, he was granted what he had searched for in the desert of the world for such a long time, in vain. Behold, the meaning of this. During these days, and even more so in the coming dark ages, the kingdom of God must be taken by force. For he who will search will also find, if he will not stand idle upon the ever so barren road. To the one who will knock on the door, even at night, it will be opened, and to him who will ask persistently will be given what he had asked for. Did you all understand this illustration well now? Agricola said, "Lord and Master, we surely have understood this illustration, but as far as I understand it, it does not contain as many comforting things when compared to your many other lessons and words. Of course, it is true that, in order to attain great happiness, great sacrifices and much effort is required. But in my opinion, if one possesses an earnest and firm will to live completely according to your teaching, which, as far as I see it, I do not consider particularly difficult or tiring, since you yourself have said that your yoke is soft and your burden is light, then I must honestly confess that, within these words, according to which the kingdom of God can only be attained by force, both in these days and darker times yet to come, I simply fail to discover the comforting soft yoke and light burden. However, within these words of yours, I can see that the propagation of your teaching, no matter how divinely true it is, will bring with it great battles and even the bloodiest of wars. Because on this earth, for the sake of upholding the free will of man and the eventual proper education thereof, the many devils and the few true angelic men possess the same right to act, only somewhat limited by the strict state laws. And thus, in order to attain the kingdom of God, indeed much force will be required. However, Lord and Master, much of the supposed soft yoke and light burden appears to be lacking. Now, this is merely my point of view, and I am of the opinion that I am not completely in the wrong. But still, I ask you to explain a little more clearly how one must use force to take hold of the kingdom of God. For I would like to see your soft yoke, the light burden, and the use of force a little closer to each other. Chapter 105. What it means to take the kingdom of heaven by force. Said I, "Friend, he who yearns for it in earnest, for him every effort and work is a soft yoke and a light burden. But when you seek to avoid honest effort, then thereby you will fail to attain the desired goal. The proper effort and labor are the force by which every person must take the kingdom of God for himself. You see, you yourselves do great violence to the kingdom of God. But because you seek to attain it in full earnest, you do not avoid any effort or sacrifice, and thus my yoke for you appears quite soft, and my burden laid upon you is light and little. Simply consider that, out of love for me, you are taking all those young people with you to Rome, in order to properly take care of them there in my name. And besides them, you also take with you that poor family from Emmaus, the family of Elias, and several converted temple servants, together with their wives and children, and you will take care of them as well. Behold, this is great violence, which you, as Gentiles, are doing to the true kingdom of God, to take it for yourselves entirely, and you will do even greater violence to it, because your faith in me, your love for me, and your firm and good will shall cause you to do even more than what you have done so far. And still, all this will be to you but a soft yoke and a light burden, for you gladly and earnestly wish it so. Friend, if you will now look at this in the light of proper reason and evaluate it, you surely will see that the soft yoke, the light burden, and the violence that must be done to the kingdom of God comes down to one and the same thing. Were you now to take a look at our temple servants and many other worldly men, do consider this: that which you do now so very easily to attain the kingdom of God, for them would entail such an enormous amount of effort for their will, that you could move the very mountains of the earth with it, as it were. And if they, who could do it, will not do such violence to the kingdom of God, as you have done already, with the greatest joy, then they will truly not attain it. As it is now during these days, and during this time, so will it be in times yet to come with the men of the world. For this earth will never completely lack those who love the world. And to men such as these, my yoke will never appear soft, and my burden light. If, however, during their last days, amidst the long night of their earthly life, they nonetheless intend to attain the kingdom of God, they will have to knock on the doors to receive but a little bit of bread from the lowest heavens, to satisfy the hunger of the life of their soul. Therefore, he who will do much for my sake and perform many sacrificial deeds will also receive much from the kingdom of God. But he who, just as the nighttime traveler at the end of his journey through this world, will earnestly begin to knock on my door and ask, will indeed not be rejected either, but he will only receive little, for he made little effort to attain for himself the kingdom of God, and he only began to seek it when dire need forced his hand. That such a person has done very little violence to the kingdom of God is easy to understand. And so it is likewise easy to understand that such a person cannot expect to receive a large portion of the kingdom of God. For with the same measure with which someone meets here, he will be meted in the kingdom of God. Thus, he who has done great violence to the kingdom of God in order to attain it will receive great might and power on this earth already. But he who has done only little violence to the kingdom of God will likewise receive very little might and power, and in the beyond he will be eternally unable to reach the heights of those who, even here on this earth, have become great and mighty before me. My friend, did you understand this well now?